PR-3 is a local freight train based out of Valley Falls, Rhode Island. It's operated by the Providence and Worcester Railroad, and it has three different jobs. It either runs south to the Port of Providence, south towards Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and sometimes as far as Seekonk, Massachusetts, or north to Woonsocket, Rhode Island. The branch that runs through Pawtucket and into Seekonk is called the East Providence branch. The top speed on this stretch of track is only 10 miles per hour. That makes this train a relatively easy chase, and in today's video I decided to do exactly that. PR-3's power typically consists of two GP38-2s built fresh for the railroad by EMD in 1987. This day was different, however. I got to their yard and was surprised to see the power sitting out on the Providence main line, better known as the Port Branch, and instead of the usual duo of GP38s, I was surprised to see a General Electric B40-8, number 4001. This engine would go on to catch fire in Stamford, Connecticut while operating P&W train CHFP on May 8, 2024. This locomotive's fate is unknown, so I'm glad to have caught it before this incident happened. The second locomotive alongside 4001 was the usual GP38-2, number 2006. Not long after I arrived, the crew came out of their office and walked towards their train so they could fire up their engines and begin their day. Here they are as they fire up the 4001 and the 2006. With their engines fired up, they were ready to proceed towards their yard at Titus Street. Here they are as they cross over Mill Street in Cumberland, Rhode Island on their way to the yard. Now that the crossing was clear, I got over to the yard, and they had already coupled up to a string of cars and pulled them out to switch them over to another track. When running down the EP branch, PR-3 typically runs in a sandwich configuration. This is because the line is almost entirely single-tracked, and this allows them to be able to easily head back north towards the yard in Valley Falls once they finish up their work for the day. So typically when they switch before their runs, they leave an engine off to the side of the yard, then build their train with a single engine. Here they are as they begin building their train with the 2006 light power. spend another 20 to 30 minutes switching in the yard. train was all built, all that was left to do before heading south was to recouple to the 4001 and realign the leading switch to the yard. I decided that the first spot I'd catch PR-3 on the EP branch was the first industry of the day, Techner Apex in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Techner takes covered hoppers loaded with plastic pellets. This train came to a stop just before their crossing on Cottage Street. The conductor then hopped down from the cab, removed the protecting derails of the industry tracks. Once this was completed, they uncoupled the 2006 and proceeded over the Cottage Street crossing, light power, where they were shoved back into the industry to begin their switching. Now that their switching was completed, PR-3 shoved back over Cottage Street and recoupled to their train, where they would proceed south down the East Providence branch, paralleling the George Bennett Industrial Highway. I would then shoot PR-3 one final time on their southbound trip at Beverage Hill Ave in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Sadly, this was the last spot I would be able to catch them on their southbound trip before they began working their final industry of the day in Rumford, Rhode Island. I was unsure if I was able to legally go into the industry at Rumford, so I decided to just skip that spot altogether and wait for them to go back north. So I caught up to them outside Noyce Ave in Rumford, Rhode Island. They were stopped momentarily, which allowed me to walk up the abandoned and disconnected sidetrack that paralleled the EP branch line. Soon after I set up, they began to slowly crawl north back towards their yard in Valley Falls. I soon was able to catch back up with them, just as they passed back over Beverage Hill Avenue. I then set up at their crossing on Columbus Avenue, just past Key Container in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Headed further north and just past Techner Apex again to set up at Central Avenue. This would be the final shot I would be able to get of them before they arrived back to their yard in Valley Falls. setup for them met Titus Street again as they slowly chugged their way back into the yard. Here they are as they cross over Mill Street and then soon after Titus Street in Cumberland, Rhode Island. Now that they were back in the yard, they then began the disassembly of their train. Just like when they were building, this is typically done with just one locomotive. So they set 4001 all the way off to the side of the yard and began switching and taking apart their train with the 2006. The first car taken off the train was their gondola that was full of scrap. Now that the gondola was back in the yard, they recoupled the two covered hopper cars to the 4001. 2006 then pulled the train out in front of the engine house, where they would uncouple it and leave it momentarily, while 4001 shoved the two covered hopper cars onto the East Providence branch, where it would be collected at a later time. Now, with their train disassembled, all they had to do was recouple their engines. Here's 4001 long hood forward, creeping past the engine house on its way to recouple to 2006. PR-3 would then shove back across Mill Street one final time and onto the Port Branch, where they would tie their locomotives down for the night.
In a city, still so far from home. I've searched for you all my life. Cast out like a shadow, racing towards the light. I pray to see you one more